All right, I'm Kathy Williams, the Yarmouth Town Planner, and we're going to have our first kickoff meeting of our Open Space and Recreation Plan Ad-Hoc Committee. This is both an in-person and a hybrid meeting, so any votes we might take, not today, but in general, would need to be a roll call vote. I think maybe the first thing that we can do is go around the room and everyone can kind of introduce themselves and we can kind of get started. Again, Kathy Williams, Town Planner.
Steve Sozansky, Recreation Commission.
Amy Howell, Recreation Director.
Christy Marzigliano, Open Space, and I'm a representative to CPA, and I also sit on the Yarmouth Conservation Trust.
I'm Cassie Bethany. I'm a landscape architect and project manager at Weston & Sampson.
Brandon Kunkel, also a landscape architect, but the practice leader for our landscape architecture program.
Hi,
Bill
I'm
Benetti. Oh, I'm sorry, Will.
and Steve, there's this far. I'll be quiet. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. You're next.
All right, Bill. I think it's Bill Benetti who's the acting head of the Department of Natural Resources. It's scary that I know your voice, Bill. I am Will Rubenstein. I'm representative on the planning board. Thank you.
Amanda
Lima, town engineer.
As Will said, Bill Benetti, Acting Director of Natural Resources.
Ellie Lawrence, City Commissioner for Conservation. Gail Charette, Disability Commission.
Brittany D'Arienzo, the Conservation Administrator.
I think as everyone knows, we currently have an open space and rec plan that expired last August, actually. So we're trying to expedite an update to the open space and rec plan so we can get it back into the state and get approval. So we're going to be eligible for all of the grants that come along with having an active open space and recreation plan. We were lucky enough to get Weston & Sampson in order to help us as our consultant. We've been able to procure them. So I think I'm going to turn it over to you guys to kind of give a little bit of a summary of how we're going to move forward.
No, great. Thank you so much. Some of the folks, I am off screen and I apologize. But again, Brandon Kunkel with Weston & Sampson. And we're super excited to be here and we understand the importance of an OSRP or Open Space and Recreation Plan. It really does set the framework for the next 7 years. That's just the life cycle of a typical OSRP. And that, as you had mentioned, it has to do with the ability to get funding for grants through the state. And this is one of their requirements to make sure you have a roadmap on how you plan to spend the money they give you. And so we're really here today to dust off the old one that has expired and reevaluate what the report out on that was. Is it still valid? Does it still make sense? And moving forward, how do you guys want to pivot if necessary to meet the needs of the town moving forward, and that includes active recreation, passive recreation, conservation land, all open space assets. So thank you very much for having us here today. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Cassie, and she'll run through an agenda that we put together. And really, please, this is a casual conversation. If you have any comments or thoughts, just stop us and we'll go from there.
Yeah, that's the intention here. So we'll go through each path of the open space plan, this project, and then as we go, just chime in with things that you know and where we can find more information, because this is your knowledge is really our leaping off point here. So we're kicking off the project today. This kickoff meeting is important for many reasons. For us to get to know you, for you to get to know us, and to establish what all the roles and responsibilities are of each of us. We'll also establish what our objectives are and what our meeting schedule will be moving forward. We'll identify where our key contacts are. I think we've already done that. And then what existing resources we have already. We obviously have the 2015 plan and there's a 2018 update. Part of our work will be to go through all planning documents and other work that's been created and make sure that the update reflects the latest and greatest thinking in town. What GIS information or other technical information is available. And then we'll go through a schedule and establish what our lines of communication are. Right now, it's been Kathy and us coordinating on contracts, and then we'll move forward, and that might shift and change over time, depending on what we're discussing at the moment. So talk about that, and then we'll talk about public engagement. I think we want to get started on that as soon as we can. So that's the purpose of today. We'll be meeting with you all, but we'll also be getting out to see all of these open spaces. Our team, there's one other woman that will be kind of a regular presence on this team, Lauren, who isn't here today. But we'll get out to a lot of these properties. We'll see inventory, what the conditions are, assess them as they are today, and that'll help us make recommendations. And then we'll look to your knowledge base to understand what new assets are coming online, what opportunities there are for future properties, what you've been hearing in town in terms of what people are wanting to see and what the needs are. So that's getting into a little bit of the next item, but we really want to kind of lay the groundwork at the beginning and understand where we're at today in this moment, what we've done so far and where we're at today. Are there any thoughts on that? Yep.
And you're assessing, you said open space, for what purpose? Yeah.
Sure. I mean, basically, we want to take an inventory, and part of the latest OSRP requirements, you have to do an accessibility analysis. You have to evaluate the conditions of the site or potential. So in most OSRPs, we'll make recommendations about land acquisition moving forward. And so we'll want to evaluate your current conditions of land and how that might compare to being required or wanting to acquire more land moving forward. We haven't gotten into the weeds yet, so but we're just trying to establish a baseline of all your assets here in town, and then from there we can work with you folks as well as the public engagement, and that's a huge piece of it.
I also sit on the land disposition committee,
Okay.
and what they've decided is because there are any number of projects coming up with the town, a new library, perhaps moving the firehouse, etc. We have not disposed on properties because the selectmen haven't decided where these projects are going to go.
Right.
So that kind of interacts, and then looking at the parks, that also interacts with the park study.
Right.
So you've got
A lot
several
of moving
studies that
pieces.
are
Yes.
interrelated here.
Yeah. And that's not unusual, to be honest with you. And we'll make note of those in the OSRP. If they're not completed by the time we complete the OSRP, we would definitely make recommendations like, hey, following the completion of such and such study, and this is probably why you guys may have done a update in 2018. Maybe there is new information. I guess one way that we look at it, and this is a living document. It's always intended to be updated moving forward. It's really just a roadmap to provide guidance about, at this moment in time in 2022, here are the important things for the town of Yarmouth. That might change 4 or 5 years down the road. And really the 7-year process, that's for the state to allow the opportunity for communities to actually stop, reevaluate. Does that still make sense? So that's very helpful information. Thank you. And we'll definitely dig into the what the direction that may be heading moving forward, those other studies. And then we would look to incorporate that into this report as well.
There's also a section on section 5.1, which talks about private lands. It only lists, about 10 properties, but the Yarmouth Conservation Trust has 149 acres of privately owned land that have conservation trusts on it. It's not included here.
So we would
So,
look to include
and
that.
I can get you the
Great.
list of those
That would be very
properties.
helpful.
They're upland and wetland properties.
And that's why we're doing an update.
So there's a lot more, I mean, it says there are a handful, it's a lot more than that.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great.
Any other questions or thoughts before moving to the next task?
Kathy, can you make sure Will and Amanda can hear us? It's very soft spoken.
Thumbs up. 2 thumbs up. Thank you, though. I appreciate that.
Not all voices are created equally because of where you're sitting, but it's fine. Thank you.
I'll speak up. I can be soft-spoken.
It also helps because you're right next to
Well, I was asked when to provide input. I think we want input as soon as you can give it to us.
We'll talk about the schedule.
So moving on, public engagement.
Okay, I just say one more thing about the existing inventory. You all have some updates have been included. This is just the 2015. Just to let you know, the 2018 update was really just to answer questions from the state. They kind of approved our draft, but they wanted us, and they also wanted us to do the ADA transition plan, and that was included at that time. And I think at that time we did include the Riverwalk Park project, which had been kind of happened in between. So those were like the main things associated with that. But this year, we've asked some staff to already go through and identify some changes that we know about. We know that sewer has changed a lot, so there's some edits in that. Water, we got some great information from Lori Rizala on that. I know that Amanda's going to provide us some more information on culverts, and I tried to add some stuff in. So I think if people could go through the inventory, I think it's really sections 4 and 5 mostly, and identify, are there other things that you think need to be incorporated into those particular sections? There's a lot about, forestry lands and wildlife and that type of thing that's included in here as well. So I think the first task would be if the committee and the staff members can continue going through this and start editing it. So we'll get a really good existing conditions inventory, and then also that inventory of conservation and recreation. So that would be my hope for the next, as we move forward.
All right, so our second task is public engagement, and it's a multi-pronged approach. The first item is developing an online survey that we can get out, and part of the discussion here will be what do we want that online survey to look like? What kind of questions we want to ask? And we've printed a few examples of ones that we've done this year to give you a sense, so you can take a look at that if you'd like. And we can send those around after so you can think about them and ponder them. That's the first thing. We like to have that running for a duration of time, like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, to give people a chance to get to it and do it. We don't want it to be too lengthy, like 10 minutes max, really, 10, 15 minutes. People really won't want to do a massive survey. So that's one piece. We also would like to do, we have 2 public meetings included, and we can talk about when it makes sense to have those meetings. And then we'll go out to hearings and boards and commissions to hear the report and what the action plans and recommendations are coming out of this at the end of the process.
Couple things. So what you have there, the surveys you just passed out, that's sort of the front end. But I guess what I did, and only because we just got the data back, but
Got the results.
so this is not necessarily the same survey because we tailor it to each community based on the information we're trying to achieve. But you can see just even the fact that a 10-minute survey can yield a lot of feedback. And we'll digest all that feedback. So if it's helpful, I can definitely share this, and then we can go from there. So I just wanted to share, like, while we want to make sure we're getting productive and useful information back from the community, it's not a big effort, but what we do get back is very useful to us. So.
What would be the distribution for the survey?
So we would work with you guys on whether or not it's on a link on the town website, or, you know, we've gone through commission boards and then they'll advertise for it, or if there's a best place where people, a Facebook page or social page where, you know, you guys.
We kind of have
get the word out.
a publicity program already, and we did it really, a lot of it for the visioning. So there's a lot of ways to get that information out to people, and there's a lot of different neighborhood and civic associations. The libraries have been, as well as the senior center, have been very helpful. So we can certainly get the word out about that.
And this will go in collaboration with perhaps the first public meeting. So when we're at the first public meeting, we'll reiterate there's an online survey. We encourage you to log in and take it. We can also hand out hard copy surveys, and if there's a place for it to be delivered back to the town, we've also done that, whether or not it's here or a library or several places. Because some folks, you know, aren't that savvy online with a survey, so totally understand that.
Yeah, each community is different, so it would be helpful to hear what your experience has been. Like some communities, nobody responds to online surveys, they're all paper. Some it's a mix, some online's great and distribution is easier. So
when I get a survey request online, I think it's spam, so I usually delete it.
Yeah, and I would say the same for public meetings too. We're flexible. If in your experience over the pandemic, that format isn't working, we have a whole toolkit of options to engage with people. So that's part of what I wanted to ask the group was, in your experience in your public meetings that you've had lately, what has been successful?
We've been having the hybrid meetings to allow people, if they can't come, to still be able to participate. I guess it depends on what you're doing. I mean, if you're really trying to do a workshop and getting together with smaller groups, we did do that during the visioning process with breakout rooms and having facilitators in each room and asking those questions. So is this a case where, are we, the first survey, are we just trying to look for the town's general feeling about the current recreation and open space and what they might like to see? So really kind of going back a step, forget about what we have in the existing plans. You still feel the same way about these things?
Yeah,
okay.
Pretty much. We want to hear, like, you know what, that's not important to us anymore. Like, even if it's a negative, and I put that in air quotes, you know, we want to hear that. And whether or not that ends up in the final, you know, guidance and action items, then we want to know that.
So you'd have the survey, and then you'd also have one of the first public meeting would be asking the public in the same exact questions if they're more comfortable.
In the survey, right? It hasn't been closed yet.
Okay.
Here's what sort of the early results are, almost like a straw poll.
Okay.
And then we'll ask, no, that's totally not right. Like that's, you know, I don't know who's answering that question, or someone's logging in on 7 different emails and loading the answers. But like sort of
that never happens.
And you know, some people might not be aware of the survey or don't feel comfortable with technology. Totally understand that. And a public forum is a way for them to express their thoughts and feelings. But it's a way to validate sort of, here's what we're seeing. Does that sound right? And if so, great, we'll continue. But if we have to adjust the survey because we're not getting the information back to us in a way that's accurate, then that gives us a chance to pivot.
Yeah, in that first public meeting, we'll go through the process of what we're doing and why we're doing it, what our goals are, what our outcomes will be. But then we can also share out what we've learned by our boots on the ground, inventorying, like what information we've collected through your review of the 2015 plan and what's changed since then. So we can give like a good update at that moment in time as well.
Yeah.
Do you have a preference on how the meeting?
We've done all forms. It's really what you have experienced being successful. So we're working in a different community right now, and it's actually a fairly sizable community. It's about 50,000 people. I think our largest meeting has been 30 people. Now, is that successful? I don't know, but we don't get a lot of turnout, but that's just their, you know, so, but yet this one, almost 900 respondents.
Yeah,
so.
that's good. Yeah. Does anyone do you think we should be having an in-person workshop now? Or how does anybody feel about that? Or do you think it should be online? It's really hard if you're going to do breakout. It's really hard to do that hybrid.
For sure.
Oh, yeah.
I guess
but
I might recommend the first one being in person, and then we'll see how it goes, and if we feel like it's better suited to do a virtual, and it might be where you can have people listen in during the first meeting virtually and chime in and comment. They just may not be able to participate if there is a breakout section.
Okay.
Or if they want to, we can figure a way somehow, I hope, to have them participate online.
In my experience, we've done breakouts kind of as their second meeting anyway. It can be open forum first, so I've done it a couple ways. One is like just typical presentation with an audience and the podium to ask questions. Or I've done it where you have that plus like a series of boards that people can walk around open house style and look at findings that we've heard from community meetings or mapping that we're creating. And be able to mark up plans and things or add post-its, that sort of thing, to add their comments.
As part of that first public meeting?
Yeah.
That sounds good. And then like the second go around, and please, I'm just wondering whether I would envision that we would gather all of that data, and that's the data that we would use to develop kind of our goals and start thinking about our action items. And then the action items and all of that, it's the thing that we would also obviously want to get. That's kind of almost in a sense the most important part. And basically check back in with the public. Did we hear you correctly? Are these things important to you? So would that be that would be an easy Survey Monkey survey, that type of thing. And then another public meeting. Would that be the situation?
Yeah, so it's always good just to report back. Here's what we're hearing. Are we hearing you correctly? And like, do we all agree with these action items? Because this is what we're seeing as driving action items, and we might get 13 action items, but is that really achievable for the town? Like, let's be realistic. Could we maybe, is it the
Thank you
top
for
five?
saying
Top
that.
five, right? Like, let's not set ourselves up for failure, or like, oh, we only got 2 done out of all this, and like, maybe we should only focus on the top 3 because those are the most important and perhaps the most achievable.
So that's that second check-in with,
Correct.
And that would include a survey as well.
I guess I might say, let's see how the respondents are to the first survey. Because if we're not getting a lot of feedback from the first survey, we probably won't get a lot of feedback from the second survey.
I just feel like the second survey would be the meaty stuff that people would say, oh, wait a minute, what exactly are your action items that you're going to have? And then people might want to provide more comments on that.
And
I don't know how everyone
we can
else.
definitely consider that. I'm not saying it's off the table.
Okay.
I guess I might just caveat, let's see how we start to get feedback.
Sure.
And see if you guys this is really valuable information, and wow, we didn't even realize that from the greater community. Like, totally awesome. Or like, yeah, we know all this stuff, and this is just 25 people's opinion out of the entire community. So. And that might be the case. I don't know.
There's a lot of plans going on and a lot of surveys and a lot of requests for people's input. So that makes it even more
so
difficult.
we also don't want to oversaturate them, right? Oh, another survey.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, we skipped over it a little bit, but part of what we'll report in that second meeting is what we learned from the community through this and from the first meeting, and then also what we're seeing. So there's an analysis of needs assessment that's applied that coalesces all of the physical assets with what people want in the future. And it says, these are the preferences that we're seeing moving forward, and those formed on what our recommendations are, which is that next task. So all of the input, the on the ground, and the analysis then forms those recommendations, and that's what we'll report out at that second meeting. Alongside that process, we'll take any mapping that has been done previously and we'll update it all through GIS and we'll add all the new properties that are not represented. And we'll come up with a series of maps that are required by the state.
They're pretty specific on
They're
what they
very
want.
specific maps.
Yes, Melissa knows us well. She's not afraid to express her opinions, and rightfully so. But she's great to work with if you guys haven't worked with her yet. But
What is the state agency that's requiring?
this is the Energy and Environmental Office of something. It's an EEOA. Yeah. Exactly. It's a tongue twister. It's a tongue twister.
Just the
Yeah. But Melissa Cryon's the director of the OSRP program. She's actually ultimately the one that will, in the future, determine grant funding, whether or not, yes, you've made all the requirements in your OSRP, you've applied for a grant, we agree, this is the best use of the state's money, blah, blah, blah. But she wears a lot of hats, but I don't know how she does it, but she's very thorough and is generally great to work with. So. But she knows what she wants.
You realize you won't have permission to visit the privately owned properties. That's.
Yeah, and that's fine.
You just have a list of them.
And that's completely fine. And that's not unique to.
We have to make appointments and make a schedule to visit those properties.
I think the conservation lands you'll be visiting are probably the ones that actually have trails. They're the more active conservation areas, not just large tracts of private land.
Correct.
Or even public land.
And
Because
we
there's
do
a ton
know-
of water department
Yeah.
land. They're not going to go look at any of that person.
Yeah, let me know.
Any permission to go on those.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, and this is not unique to Yarmouth. Like, we wrapped up the city of Worcester's OSRP earlier this year. And they have conservation land that's just land that is really unusable for other purposes, whether or not it's complete wetlands or, and so that we cataloged all that, but basically we didn't go visit the wetland because there's no reason to.
Kathy, to your point, I think something maybe we should look at, because you said there's a ton of water department land and nobody really uses that, but we have tons of well field where we do have trails that
There
are
are.
just as active as any
Right.
conservation area.
Right.
And I've always kind of been like, it's just, since I've worked here,
Oh,
it's been allowed. We've maintained those trails. We've created fire breaks. We've done
Oh.
controlled burns for habitat projects in well field.
I didn't know
on
you
well field
maintain
properties.
those trails.
So, well, most of the maintenance has been because of the controlled burn and habitat projects. It's kind of not the same maintenance schedule as the conservation areas. But I've always been kind of torn as to, well, are people allowed on wellfield property? Like, it's clear, you go into the water department, there's signs, yeah, no trespassing, public water supply. But I mean, that's like, you have the pump stations and everything that have a secondary fence around them that's locked. And so I've kind of taken it as, you can't go in there, or you can't drive a vehicle into these fire roads within, the well field boundaries. But the trails through the well field, I mean, have been open to passive recreation and heavily used since I've been here. So,
Especially by mountain bikes.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I run across a lot of those, yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's almost like it's a town policy issue. We're not, I think in case of, we may not be actively preventing it, but we don't want to necessarily actively encourage
Right.
it either.
Right. I think I've always seen it as a gray area, and
Yeah.
it's worked and left it alone.
Yeah.
Is that open for hunting? Those areas?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the other deterrent this time of year is the hunting aspect.
But so are some of the conservation areas. I mean,
True.
we've got a map that probably, I don't know if it's included here, but you should look at, that has all town-owned parcels at the time that map was created that are color-coded green or red based on whether it's open or closed to hunting, and that was from like an ad hoc committee's review in '97 or something, and that could maybe stand to be reviewed if there's been new development or whatnot. But I don't think there's been really any, too much in those adjacent to those areas that would affect the status based on any new development. I can't think of any, but I'm just throwing that out there.
No, that's very helpful. Thank you. Just on the technical side, is there a point of contact for local GIS?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, Bruce Barrow.
Okay.
Yep. And he can provide you, with all the layers or whatever.
No,
that you
that'd
might
be
need.
great. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? So we'll have an action plan and an action map that comes out of this process. And then our last task is to draft and finalize the OSRP, the actual written document that you have the draft of from the 2015 plan. So there's some checkpoints involved in that. So we'll draft the open space plan. We'll give it to Kathy to distribute as needed. That plan can be presented to the boards that need to weigh in on it. And then we'll collect those comments, and then we'll prepare our final draft. That's what gets submitted to Melissa. And while she's reviewing it, we will we'll wait, I guess, and then collect any comments back.
Yeah. So there's two approaches. Ultimately, we need to get letters of endorsement from various boards and select boards or whatever your local ruling body is.
That's them.
We'll ultimately have to be the ones to write a letter of endorsement saying, yes, this has been approved by the town. Everyone is in agreement. Here, state of Massachusetts. But you can do that concurrently while Melissa is reviewing
That's good
the
to know.
draft. Because normally it won't impact the outcome of the action item. And that's kind of the most important thing. But she might just be like, please provide more backup data for blah, blah, blah. It won't necessarily say pivot the direction of the report.
So we listed several of the different boards that we had a sense, just from our experience, would need to see the plan, the draft plan.
Yep.
Are there particular ones that are more like that we would be presenting to over others, or is our list accurate? We have planning board, board of selectmen, open space committee, rec commission, conservation commission, and then Cape Cod commission.
I think open space, rec, Concom, we have, and I'm assuming we wouldn't necessarily have to give any type of separate presentation to the Disability Commission. Maybe this is a case of inviting multiple committees. I mean, the only people you need the endorsement letters from is it the planning board and the board of selectmen, or who else do you need the actual endorsement from? Because those we should meet with.
So normally, my experience, it's normally the select board, but whether or not other commissions actually also sign the letter as well, is possible. But from a presentation or just disseminating the information, we'll usually present to the select board and invite the other commissions and boards to attend.
That sounds good. And I mean, each of these, we've kind of picked the representatives from the ad hoc committees because those are the important committees. And then, they can go back to their committees and kind of update them on how things are going with the open space and rec land. And this is an ad hoc committee underneath the Conservation Commission. So ultimately, the Conservation Commission is they're paying for it, and and so there probably will need to be something before the Conservation Commission because of that as well.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to understand. Okay, and then we'll continue to meet on a regular basis. I know we want to move quickly to get a plan back that's able to be used. So we like to meet every other week, and if it's this group or if it's a smaller group, that's up to you. But so in our proposal, we suggested we were anticipating a duration of about 5 months, and so that would be about 10 meetings total, one every other week, and we can adjust that as we go based on how things are going. There might be more on the front end because we're getting our feet underneath us, and then while we're writing the report or mapping or what have you, it'll adjust. So we'll be flexible on that, but just allowing us to do regular check-ins keeps the momentum moving. Any questions on tasks? The page after the agenda is a target date schedule that's very generalized, and this will be a form of this can be used in our public meetings. Graphic schedule, I think, just visually helps people understand, but it's not detailed by any means. And we have laid out each of these tasks that we just went through, and you'll see some are overlapping. So we'll start doing our inventory, but we can actually start analyzing what's going on at the same time. We can also start our mapping process, and you probably can start it sooner than mid-January. But then once we get into the draft report, we'll want to revisit those maps and validate them. So there's some back and forth that happens between tasks, but ultimately they're tracking alongside each other in a forward direction. We're starting today. We're hoping to be out and have a draft by March, and then we're in the review process with the state and with boards and commissions through early spring, and then we have an endorsed plan by June. End of June.
June's a big month.
Yeah. End of June. And so we've included public engagement there, and we can talk about where that actually lands. That's just, placeholder for now on timing. Any questions on schedule? And I know that it's plugging into a larger planning process that's happening, and that'll be coordinated.
Yeah, the planning board's working on updating the local comprehensive plan. Obviously, the updating of the housing production plan and the update of the open space and rec plan play a really large role in that. So this is going to be very beneficial for that process as well.
Good.
I guess for the next meeting, I mean, we need to try and set something up for next meeting, and then and assign the actual tasks that we're looking for input from the committee, which I'm assuming would be going through this section 4 and 5 and seeing if you have any comments. You can just identify, even if you don't want to, you can either write some stuff out and send it to us, or even if you're just like, oh, I know we have something over there, be sure we add something about, right, just make a note, and then we'll make sure that we can flesh that out and provide more information on that. So I think if both the committee and town staff can do that for our next meeting, that would be great. And then also I will send out the survey questions. I'll send out you sent some examples, and also the survey that we did last time. I can send that around. So maybe when we meet next time, we can really start formulating that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it'd be great. So obviously next week is Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I know.
We're coming right back. I know. I actually thought there was going to be pie here today. That's what I was told. There you go. But anyway, let's get through next week. And we're supposed to meet the following week if we're gonna keep the 2-week momentum. But if that's not enough time, just given the holiday, we could reschedule the next
Yeah.
meeting.
I think it might make sense.
But I guess it makes, if we could have, let's say it's either 3 weeks or we go 4 weeks, because
Right.
that would be 2 weeks later.
Right.
If we could have sort of an endorsed survey by that point of questions, and then we could get that posted pretty quickly after the next meeting, I guess. So if that makes
Right.
sense for folks.
I haven't looked at the surveys. I just
No,
kind of got
fair
some
enough,
examples. So I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
and but I think we need to look at the surveys and kind of say, is that kind of what we want, information we're looking to gather, and is there anything else we're looking to gather?
Survey would have approximately how many questions?
We try not to go more than 15 typically, because we assume about a minute per question, and people's bandwidth is already stretched enough. Yeah.
Are you gonna list out all of our recreation areas like in this Canton survey? Because that makes question 1
Really long.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's
So
15 in that.
we can figure all that out, and I guess that's why we would like your input
Yeah.
on sort of the survey. Like we really do have a lot of properties, and people may or may not be aware of them, which would be very helpful. But at the same time, like, are they really going to go through 300 properties? I don't know.
It would be good to get some more public input, I think, and hopefully positive public input on the Riverwalk Park project, the boardwalk. I mean, that's currently in permitting and design. I think it's, so far, it's very strongly, but people may not, might be people out there who still don't know about it. So
Well,
this
that's the
survey
other
might
thing,
help
too.
get
If
some
you're
more,
listing all
yeah.
these properties, like, oh, I didn't even know about this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you're like, you really want them to know about it.
Well, now we're on public Zoom meetings.
Well, it's
Or do we just
publicly
list
noticed
categories?
permit meetings, so.
Instead of each property, do we list what the use of these different properties are and all these categories? What type of property do you normally prefer to use, or would you like to see? Yeah.
Yeah. But we can work through all that over the next couple of weeks.
So I'm thinking, just Friday morning, I mean, we had a hard time scheduling this meeting.
Yeah.
So just Friday, it seems like Friday mornings might be, I usually try to not have meetings on Friday, so they're open, means they're open. Is that something that might work for people, like a 9 or 10 on a
This was
Friday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe the December 9th, does that make some sense?
I won't be here tonight.
Why won't you be here?
Yeah, we-
I'll be on Martha's Vineyard,
Dare you?
Yeah.
checking out their land.
So I overheard a conversation yesterday. The harbor master in, where was I yesterday? Wareham. Where was I yesterday? Got a
Sounds
call.
like me.
There is a bank robbery on
Yeah.
Martha's Vineyard,
Yeah.
and they thought they were fleeing by boat, so that's why they were calling all the harbor masters.
Yeah.
Wow.
They fleed by ferry, I think.
Oh,
Yeah, they were really checking the ferries heavily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so lame.
That was crazy when they were
I know,
tying
you run
them
them
up,
back
tying
on
two
the
of the personnel in the bank up and everything. So it wasn't just like gunpoint, they tied them up.
And,
Oh,
yeah, and
They
had
thought they were
them
at the
open
Holiday
it,
Inn.
yeah.
Who wouldn't go there?
Yeah.
They thought they were at the Holiday Inn.
Oh,
They had that shut
Oh,
down
yeah.
all in Falmouth for hours.
Oh,
They
yeah.
dismissed school, and then ultimately they were not at the Holiday Inn.
They're probably hiding in the bathrooms on the ferry.
So who knows? I don't understand robbing a bank on an island, though. You're very
Yeah, yeah.
So far, they are.
But so, yeah,
so
they got it
they've made
figured out.
Right.
They've been tunneling.
They
for
spent
the
a lot
last-
of time.
Yeah, their flames weren't burning very bright that day, I'll tell you.
Anyway, I'm sorry for the sidebar.
That's okay. The second I can do, the 9th, the second I can't do it for church day. Set up.
I just think the
I'm-
second's too, I can't do anything for the
Yeah,
second.
I'm free the 16th and the 30th, if you want to, I don't know, other people's availability.
I'm available at both those dates too.
Yeah, that, I have an opposite bi-weeklies on Fridays at 9. So the 16th and the 30th would work.
They would or
moving
would not,
forward because the other,
they would or would not.
they would,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, maybe we just do the 16th, and then that time we really want to be sure that we have a solid, have a solid survey idea so that we can start talking about launching that. Do we want to throw out some tentative dates with regard to the public
That'd be
meeting?
great. The sooner we could, because obviously we want to push it, publicly advertise for it.
Yep.
Yeah, we're getting into holidays.
Yeah, it would be in January.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where we would necessarily want to have it. I mean, if we have it in the hearing room, it can be recorded and put on
That'd be
channel
great,
18. If we're going to get into breakout, it's not the hugest room, but I think for a reasonable number. But the planning board meets the 1st and 3rd, but usually the 2nd and the 4th the hearing room is open, because I think rec meets now in room B. You guys don't meet in the hearing room, right?
Usually we're in here, so
Here,
we
okay.
just had to change it.
So I could double check for January 25th, but that would be in the evening. If that works for people.
January 25?
January 25.
That looks good.
Yeah, that's fine for me.
Do we want to give a backup date, or maybe the February 8th? Because that would be because the 1st is planning board, and so the 8th would be the next open.
That's fine for me.
Yeah, let's keep both of those, and we'll find out more. I think maybe we can solidify the actual date on the 16th.
I'm sorry, the second day was what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will, are you good for those dates? What's working for you?
I mean, I would just say in general that we have to assume from this meeting on that there's never going to be a date where everybody's going to be able to attend. So
Correct.
We all just need to agree that if whatever dates we decide, again, until June, that someone's going to pull a hamstring, and someone's going to have a family member, and someone's going to have a trip, and we just have to be okay with it and not get too caught up in any one individual person's schedule and just say it's going to be every other Friday until this thing is over. That's just my that's just my suggestion, girls. Look, this is hurting cats and it's not pretty. So we just have to agree on a few things as a group, that like the majority of the cats will be there every other Friday, but not everybody can, or else we're going to make ourselves nuts. And that is not the intention of this group, is to make ourselves nuts. We're already nuts enough. So I want to just say that up front. Secondly, I think it makes sense to do the alternate Wednesdays when the planning board isn't meeting. Only if, again, Kathy, you fly higher off the ground, so I'd follow your lead on that. But, I just said, as long as we're all okay that this is probably the only time every single person is going to be in this virtual or literal room at the same time, then I say, let's go kick some butt.
All right, I like it.
So what that's a great suggestion, Will. What works for you? And maybe we should just start doing the full, what are the dates that we're going to meet?
I mean, I think Friday mornings is fine. Apparently it was fine enough for me to work for
Right.
today.
We're just getting the specific dates. So, I mean,
If you don't mind me coming in on Zoom on that 9th, I can do the 9th, because I'll probably.
Does
be
that
having
work
a cup
for
of
you?
coffee that early in the morning.
Is that with your alternative schedule?
And thank you for having the virtual option, because honestly, without it, I probably wouldn't be at any of the meetings. So, we just have to all just do the dance that we're doing in the 2022. That's the deal.
Look how hard it was to get us all together for the first one.
yeah,
It was painful.
it was painful.
If the 16th and 30th alternating works for you and most of us, I think we should just keep that.
Yeah.
Are folks taking that week of Christmas off? Is that gonna be a high attendance date?
Between Christmas and New Year's.
I'm here for that one.
I'm on vacation that week, but I'll make sure I'm here for this meeting.
And so then what would it,
Yeah.
what would it be for, I mean, you can like remote.
Yeah.
I know you wanted to, be in person for the first one, see the faces, and it's a good introduction. But so the January would be the 13th and the 27th. Is that what we're looking at?
Which would actually work out nice with the first public meeting, just making sure we're all set for the 25th, get our ducks in a
On the
row.
13th.
Yes,
Yeah,
correct.
okay. And so February,
January.
We would have a draft,
December was the,
a draft
are we gonna
agenda.
do, go back to the ninth?
No, 16, 30.
I think we're gonna do 16th.
We're gonna make sure you're here.
December's the 16th.
You are important.
Oh, I'm very.
You'll be sending out these emails, right,
I
Kathy,
heard
so
you
we
were
can
paying
just.
the bills.
Yes.
And we'll
That's
follow
why I'm
up,
not here.
we'll follow up the meetings with the meeting minutes and making sure, try and make sure we're on the same page as much as possible, given the schedule.
Yeah, so I can send that out every 2 weeks through, through March, through April? What do you think?
Yeah, I think they're gonna start to become less critical,
Once we get into
In-
production.
in March.
Okay, but then we have the
Maybe
other,
have a meeting or maybe keep through March and then
Yeah.
we can not do them
Completely
after.
adjust.
Yeah.
and then we have that second public hearing sometime. Again, we can keep,
Right.
March has 5 Wednesdays, so we even have an extra possible date for that. It's just good for me to book the hearing room, even if it's tentative. So right here, you have like the 20, maybe March 22nd or the 29th might work for the second one? Is that too late or?
I don't think
For
so.
what, the second public hearing?
Yeah,
We can
What-
shoot for
what's
the
the next
22nd, and then,
I won't be here, but that doesn't matter.
why are you so popular?
We-
I'm going to Australia.
she's on every single committee there is, I swear, that's related to the water.
Martha's Vineyard, Australia,
I wanna do the 2 Far Islands.
you love the islands. Okay.
Were you aiding and abetting?
She's using her bank robbery money to go to New Zealand.
Either one works.
Okay,
And I'm still sitting here, they haven't bought me yet.
Either one, I missed the.
22nd or 29th.
of March. Yeah, this is helpful. Okay.
One last thing I meant to mention was we'll, I'll come up, we'll have a list of properties that we're gonna go to. That makes sense.
Oh,
We'll
okay.
vet that with you.
Okay. Yep.
Like we discussed, it doesn't make sense to go to everyone.
Yeah.
We would love for people to join us if they are able to, but it's not a requirement. So we'll plan to be out there and let everyone know when we'll be out there, and then if you're able to join, then
Attendance will be weather permitting.
How
it's up to
many,
you.
so it would be you two or more colleagues of yours,
There'll
or?
be at least 2 of us, depending on logistics and who's available. If we can get more people to divide and conquer, that might be helpful. But we haven't really figured out the logistics yet because.
Yeah, so we'll wrap our head around how many properties and then game plan about where we're going and what our days look like.
I'm just throwing it out there, like if there were days that you wanted to come and then the weather turned
Yeah.
bad, like we've got a nice little
I was
buggy that we could drive you through you with heat and AC in it. and then-
Well, full disclosure, I was hoping this would happen a little bit closer to the summer season,
Right.
so I could capitalize on that. But I love sitting in traffic on Friday mornings, so I look forward to that.
Well, you do it in categories. I mean, it'd be helpful,
Yeah.
like, so for
We
like
can do
recreation, if you were like, okay, we're gonna do
The
recreations, like, kind of in one day, instead of breaking that up. I think
No,
it would
that
be easier
makes
for us
total
to
sense.
to meet you guys.
No, that'd be great.
Conservation on another day.
Right.
Yeah, I like that idea.
We had talked briefly about the recreation work that's being done. Maybe we can get that scope of that
Yeah,
work.
so we're working on the scope. What I can give you guys, if you want, is kind of, this is what our breakdown was, which went through town meeting. If that helps you, kind of shows you what our plan is. If anyone else wants one.
Yeah.
Pass it around. But kind of has like our budget breakdown of what we'll be doing. Does tie in obviously a little bit to this.
So this is a much more detailed, in-depth
Yes.
analysis.
of the
um,
recreation.
Actually, doing this in-depth analysis might have been like one of the action items for the open space and rec plan, but they're already doing it. So this is good information to have.
And when we have a scope as we get longer into the
Thank
process
you.
too, we'll share that with you guys, so.
That way, because I think this, knowing that we're doing this obviously needs to be incorporated into the open space. And I think even in the request for cost quotes, there's a bunch of links in there to a bunch of other projects like the Riverwalk Park and all of those
Right.
things that provides a lot of the master plan, recreation master plan, the stuff that's happening in Sandy Pond.
Mhm.
So I think they have a good amount of background information on that. So that's
Now,
that.
do you want comments to come to you? Any comments?
I guess we haven't gotten the chain of command. How do you want to?
I think it's probably easier if it comes to me and then I will coordinate with, yeah, I can consolidate them, or then we can have some back and forth on it. And then we can figure out how we want to move forward with that. So before we leave today, we do need to elect a chair and vice chair. I don't think it's obviously committee members. I don't think it's a heavy lift to be chair or vice chair. It's just that, technically we need someone to run the meeting. So it has to be a committee member. And the vice chair is only to, open the meeting when the chair's not here. So I can see everyone is here chomping at the bit.
I own a lot of chairs.
Kathy, are you saying you're exempt from being chair?
Yeah, I'm staff. Yeah.
We're disappointed about that.
There's not a heavy lift. I mean, it's not a big deal.
Will?
Well, would you be willing to work with me?
I mean, as long as you don't mind me just being ahead on the screen for the next 7 months, sure.
So do you want to make a motion to have somebody make a motion to have Will be the chair?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second
Congratulations.
Wait, we got to take a roll call. Steve?
Aye.
it. Aye.
Will? Aye. Yeah. Ellie?
Aye.
And Gal?
Aye.
Okay, great. Vice chair?
I'd be willing to be vice chair.
A motion for Christine to be vice chair?
So moved.
Aye.
Or I need a
I will
second.
second that. I think Christine's.
Will loves to be the second.
Well, Christine and I do have some wonderful history, positive history.
Good. Okay, roll call, Steve?
Aye.
Christine? Will?
Aye.
Okay, all right, it's 5-0, excellent. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to talk about?
No, I think we covered it.
So again, everyone should have their copy of this. Like I say, if you want to write something, send that to me, or if you just say, add something about X, Y, or Z, that's fine as well. And we can kind of flesh that out later. And then I will send the survey that I have, the drafts from different towns out to everybody, including the one that we did before, and we can start thinking about how we want to draft our survey. So I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Christine, you?
Aye.
Aye.
Christine, yeah, Ellie, and Will. All right.
So the 16th then, is that what we agreed to?
December 16th, and I'll send out a list of the dates and the potential dates for the public meetings. Okay? All right, excellent. I think we are adjourned. Thanks, Will.